Welcome to Just to Say, the Climate Justice Sessions. My name is Sintle. And on today's episode, we're joined by Mduduzi Tshabalala, who is the Vaal Environmental Justice Alliance All Programs Manager, VEJA. We're talking about community leadership and grassroots activism in climate justice movements. Join us on this episode as we talk about the importance of communities taking charge of justice in the environmental setting and also holding corporate South Africa to account. Welcome to Just to Say. Mdu, welcome to Just to Say.
Thank you so much, Sintle.
How are you doing today?
All good, thanks. And you?
Thank you so much for joining us. You know, I first came across your profile in one of the Project 90 projects that we have, and also the conversations around community justice. But I think in context and also making sure that our listeners and viewers are also aware, please can you tell us a bit more in detail what the Vaal Environmental Justice Alliance does and its important work?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you again, Sintle. Vaal Environmental Justice Alliance is a community-based organization based in Vaal communities. We work in not all of the communities in Vaal, but we have a presence in Zamdela, Sasolburg. VEJA is a affiliate-based organization with community-based organizations in all communities. For instance, in Sasolburg, we have Zamdela Equality Monitoring Committee.
Okay.
And we have other affiliates in Bupilong, that's Bupilong Environmental Movement and Lechabile Letsatsi. We also have Vuk'uzenzele Development Forum based in Sharpeville.
Okay.
We also have Justice and Peace, which is, Justice and Peace is a Catholic social movement wing, which unfortunately the Justice and Peace organization was stopped by the Pope about a few years ago.
Okay.
But we still have comrades from Justice and Peace in Bipato and other areas south of Johannesburg.
Okay.
Then we have Butlebatlao Environmental Group based in Sebokeng, which is the organization I also co-found with others back in 2009. And then we have Samanco ex-workers based in Sebokeng. So VEJA was mainly about uniting communities in Vaal, uniting community-based organizations, from faith-based organizations to community-based organizations, organized labor, and people that are affected by environmental justice and climate change impact.
Okay.
It was formed, it was quite a long time ago. I was not even an activist at that time.
Yeah.
This was in 2004, after a few of VEJA comrades met at the Global Sustainable Summit at in Sandton, the UN Global Sustainable Summit. That was in 2002. During the Environment Commission, that's when famous names like Samson Mokoena, who's one of our fallen heroes, he met with others, Bobby Peak, and we used to have Comrade Caroline in Taupani from Sasolburg. Yeah, they all met with others to form VEJA, which was an idea back then.
Yeah.
And in 2004, the first conference happened. It was at John Bosco Center at Wakaville, and the constitution was adopted. Very interesting enough, Numsa van der Bijlpark was a former affiliate.
Okay.
It's
of
a former
VEJA
affiliate
holistically. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it used to have more than 10 affiliate-based organizations, if I remember. And over the years, things changed. Other organizations would have perhaps found other departures, but others just didn't make it. We can understand the difficulties of running a civil society organization, especially with minimal resources. But as a member of Butlebatlao, we then joined VEJA in 2012. This was after the COP that was held in Durban.
Okay.
COP 17, that was
Yes.
in 2011.
Yeah.
That's where I met VEJA comrades. We were from the same area, but I didn't know Vaal Environmental Justice Alliance was there because I was at that time I was an activist at Earthlife Africa with the Youth in Climate Change Forum.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, that then after the Durban COP, that's when I met VEJA, and everything is just history for me.
And so what inspired your activism, particularly around, environmental justice and climate action? What inspired that, particularly moving from Earthlight Africa to VEJA?
Yeah, so back in the days, I think, if I may say, in the early 2006, 2008, while I was still doing my art stuff, and with others, we met quite a few, if I may say, role models who also taught us a lot about. It was mainly a lot about waste management, because coming from Sebokeng, we had a lot of illegal dumps as a waste management problem, which I think it's still persistent today. But then we started organizing ourselves. We started doing greening and cleaning campaigns in Sebokeng. We planted more than 200 trees, I think,
Sure.
at that time. And yeah, I started participating. I was one of the young people who were recruited to the Youth in Climate Change Forum. This was also a mobilization towards the Durban COP. Yes, and perhaps the passion would have been driven by the cleanest, safest environment we all want to aspire to live in.
Which is also a human right?
Yes.
But then, VEJA is obviously known in the Vaal as proliferating and amplifying the voice of communities, right, around climate justice and climate action within the Vaal Triangle and the Vaal area. I wonder, what are some of the projects that you've engaged in? You work in all the areas related to justice and environmental action alongside the community. But what are some of the examples or projects that you've worked with alongside the community?
I think there's quite a lot. I remember back in 2015 when because I was also I worked for VEJA doing media campaign work, but also I was in the water quality campaign. And
Okay.
in the campaign, the water quality campaign, we had a good case study which was supported by the Foundation for Human Rights, and it was done through the Environmental Learning Center at Rhodes University.
Okay.
So we wrote case studies. There was about 4 case studies which came out from that process. It was a South African Water Caucus initiative which had 4 case studies in 4 different provinces. And in Gauteng province, we wrote well, the case studies also worked with organizations, and in Gauteng province, in our case, it was VEJA, which wrote a case study around water and tradition being a water management practice that has been underlooked for years.
Okay.
According to the National Water Act at that time, it didn't really speak much about faith-based population who are using water as another form of management practice. So today it is the Water Services Act, National Water Services Act. And still, after presenting our case study at Parliament, this was in 2017, we engaged with the portfolio committee, and a lot has been said, in as much as a lot had to be recognized, that a lot of faith-based communities have been excluded. From the case study, what we picked up is that a lot of people have been excluded to access the river, especially. Because in most cases, our rivers in South Africa are mostly passing on private properties.
Yes.
And a lot of faith-based spiritual water users, sometimes, especially traditional health practitioners, they get their calling, which will take them to, places that they've never been before, and they get shown via their spiritual pathways. And if when this most of the time when this happen, the site that they have to go to, which that it would have been shown to them, and you find that the site is on private property in most cases. Some have been shot,
Sure.
some have been arrested, some have been denied access literally because it's private property. So yeah, these are some of the challenges which were highlighted from our case study, and having uniting also, because in that process we tend to unite a lot of faith-based population and spiritual water users who actually saw the need for that case study to be published.
Yeah, yeah. And then I wonder, I mean, we talk about the faith organizations and other affiliations related to the youth and women. Is it difficult to bring them all together in one table to agree on climate action, be it around water, be it around waste, or are they all galvanized around the same, agreement and narrative to say we're doing this for our community, not just based on the organization that you represent? Or is there a bit of a struggle?
I'd say it's in both ways,
Okay.
because challenges are everywhere. There is a challenge to, especially on working on group dynamics.
Yes.
In such form, there are challenges whereby having to come to common understanding, people differs, people have very different opinions, but highlighting a dual cause, a mutual cause that is affecting people, whether from different cultures or different race, there is one mutual cause that is affecting everybody, and that is either access to clean water or pollution impact. For instance, it affects everybody.
Yeah, it's not just specific to women or youth, it's everybody.
Yes. So what VEJA did was to try and highlight those common interests that are affecting people, and that is the environment, that is pollution, that is access to clean water. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Vaal, by its nature, is in a very important part of the country and forms part of a lot of the mining activity and coal belt of the country. I wonder, when you have community engagements and discussions, particularly around the just energy transition, what are some of the feedback that you're getting from the communities? And are you also having common ground with some of the mining houses and corporate levels that are there? I'm particularly thinking of Cecil and Cecilberg. What are some of the discussions that are taking place between the workers and the communities in understanding, the shutting down of certain mines or corporates?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. Vaal is one area in South Africa that was mostly industrialized in the early 30s, like other regions, and very, very true. A lot of companies are closing down, and with that being said, a lot of people have lost jobs, a lot of livelihoods, because if we look at Vaal, a lot of people, for instance, we are from that industrialized region whereby our families was also working in the
Yes.
industrial parks that are there, and a huge setback is that a lot of environmental impacts are sitting with communities.
Sure.
With a lot of, for instance, if we go to Sasolburg, we had Sigma mine, which used to operate. It is still in operational. It perhaps Sasol would have changed management and names, but Sigma mine is still there under management of Sasol. But the old Sigma mine, which used to operate there, they left. They left without proper closures. Like, for instance, a lot of workers were not properly paid. Who used to work at the coal mine there. They were not. I remember my uncle was one of them, and they had a forum of ex-workers in Sasolburg, and a lot of them they actually exited without getting compensation funds,
Sure.
especially occupational health.
Sure.
So there is that element that exists, not just in Valley. I think it exists across South Africa, but you know, a lot of unjust issues like that are happening in silence because there's quite a lot of workers who have been mistreated, who have not been paid their full exit funds. So VEJA is a member of a lot of coalitions, quite a few coalitions. For instance, I've mentioned earlier on the South African Water Caucus, but we are also a member of the Global Fair Steel Coalition, whereby a lot of environmental injustice have been highlighted. For instance, the Global Fair Steel Coalition launched quite a few reports. One of them was the real cost of steel, which featured about 15 case studies where ArcelorMittal and Tenium mine is operating.
Okay.
And yeah, we see this as, in that case study, we have highlighted the 15 cases whereby we see these host communities as sacrifice zones.
Sure.
For this big corporation. It's quite a huge impact that is sitting. For instance, if we look at Vanderbijl Park, there's a land contamination issue which is sitting with the farmers west of ArcelorMittal, west of Vanderbijl Park.
Okay.
There's a land contamination issue which has never been addressed. This was after VEJA won a court case at the Supreme Court of Appeal against ArcelorMittal to access the environmental records, environmental impact records, which were recorded by the company. And it was by law that those documents, the environmental master plan for ArcelorMittal is a public document. So we had to go to court for more than 10 years to access those documents. And only in 2014, after receiving the documents, then together with the help of partners, of course, we were able to pinpoint the pollution that was happening. After the court orders, ArcelorMittal was asked to remediate, to rehabilitate, of which in our case we think they only rehabilitated the impact on site, and
not necessarily in the community.
they left the impact outside of their operations in Vanderbijl Park.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of farmers in Louis Rees, Millerstein, Rietgale, in that region, they have lost their livestock due to contaminated water that is coming from ArcelorMittal. There were farmers who were sitting adjacently, just on the fence line with ArcelorMittal at Steel Valley. A lot of them had to relocate due to the impact that is there.
And that's a whole ecosystem that's now gone, right?
Because
from a farming standpoint, you also are employing. There's also livestock that can then be sold to the community and generating income in that sense. Absolutely. And so as VEJA, you're leading this cause, and through your partners, you also are making sure that justice is served in the sense. But what does it look like, 4 years down the line? Is there a variable impact, or are we now turning our communities, like you said, into sacrifice zones because of these big corporates?
They are indeed. I mean, either 10 or 4 or 5 years down the line, ArcelorMittal hasn't met their court commitments. Sasol is one company that is also doesn't want to take full responsibility of what they did. A lot of equality license variations that happened, because I want to bring this issue. We have a lot of quality licenses variated by Sasol, ArcelorMittal, Eskom, Letabo, and other other facilities within the Vaal Triangle Airshed priority area. And we see this as a lack of capital will, if I may say this, because a lot of companies have been operating and are still making profit without giving back, especially to the ecological impact that was caused while the profit was being made. So indeed, it is a sacrifice zone with workers who have to sacrifice their lives.
Sure.
Families who are sitting next to these huge pollution factories, as we call them, because the pollution is sitting outside the factory, and it is sitting with the people. It is sitting on the roofs of the houses. Some communities will tell you that they don't know even when to do their laundry, to put it on the washing line, because either it's in the evening or in the afternoon there is particulate matter that is going to land on the washing. Especially this is common in Sasolburg and other areas.
Yeah. And as VEJA, you obviously stand at this point where you represent the community, but are also, lobbying and doing your best against the corporations. I wonder, what are some of the personal and organizational challenges that you face? In as far as financial, emotional, but also organizationally, what are some of the key challenges that you then face as VEJA? Because you stand in the gap, right? You represent the community and the organizations there, but also you're lobbying on the side and talking to these minds and organizations that are also at the forefront of that. So what are some of those challenges that you encounter?
Yeah, I think with fair observations, unemployment is one of the greatest challenge, not only faced by South Africa, but it's a global phenomenon whereby most of the time, a lot of people, especially young people, would prioritize their interests mostly on job issues, on economical issues. And here am I, Mduduzi, as a young activist, trying to create this awareness that the very same big industrial companies are polluting us.
Yeah.
They are taking too much of our water. And some of my pals definitely wouldn't listen to me because I'm not talking their language.
Yes.
That is one of the greatest challenge, because unemployment is one big setback. A lot of civil society organizations work on volunteers.
Okay.
And it's very difficult to recruit more members to have, because there's a say of believing in numbers. When there's more than people, there's more power in numbers. So when there's a lot of us, I think there's more power, especially, for instance, if we would want to determine, or if people would want to determine what is it that can be adjusted to them. At the moment, government is imposing development to the people involved.
Sure.
A lot of young people are not informed. There's a lack of prior consent informed for people. There's green hydrogen developments that are currently happening, I think, for the past 2 years in Vaal, when a lot of my pals have been excluded from this information. It's also one of the biggest setback, because the question is, if the developments are currently under construction for the past 2 years, who is working there?
Yeah. And how did they hear of that opportunity? Yeah.
So there is that big challenge that is going on. And because people are also fighting over resources, it's going to be a huge challenge to organize ourselves and put demands as to what is it that we want.
You spoke about government imposition and, the policy frameworks we sometimes talk about on the show are also impacting on communities.
Yes.
What are some of those impositions that sort of the government or the municipality places on communities or organizations like yourself as VEJA?
The manner of public participation itself, it is a flow process which happens across South Africa, because a lot of mine host communities are mostly excluded, and one of the biggest or greatest setback is not giving people information,
Okay.
which disempowers a lot of communities on, for instance, on the process of environmental scoping. People will not be able to engage because information didn't reach them. I can make a practical example. We have the Blue Bay coal that is proposed in Vereeniging, with about 3 open casts, and this is said it is going to be the biggest in Sub-Sahara should the mine be given a go-ahead. It should raise a huge alarm, especially to job seekers.
Okay.
But when you go to the region, when you go to Vaal today, I think not even 1% of the people are aware of this big mine.
Sure.
But the biggest question again is, where is the water going to come from? Well, it's another issue. And with this being said, environmental authorization are yet to be processed. But a lot of communities have not been engaged. There's a lot of concern because on the proposed sites, which currently it is agricultural hub, for instance, Vlakfontein is not far from where I live. It's just a few meters, less than 500 meters from Watterdal.
Okay.
Those are agricultural hubs. Springfield itself is a mixed agricultural hub with urban space, because Springfield is located between Valdrift, which is one of Vereeniging suburbs, and Roshni.
Okay.
So in between, it's an agricultural site. A mine cannot be passed. In our opinion, a mine cannot be passed in between urban space.
Correct, yes.
And then we have Redan siding, which is also an agricultural hub. So there's issues of rezoning, whereby a lot of farmers at the moment, we have signed a petition of more than 3,500 people who said we don't want the mine. And most of those people are farmers who are on the proposed site, and they are worried. A lot of people, we are worried about the water table that is going to be impacted if the mine is approved. So the issue of public concern and prior public concern is one of the biggest setback that we are grappling with local councillors that are not going to the people when these processes are happening.
Yeah. And I mean, what are the discussions then held with the local municipality or councillors? Is there a level of engagement that you can push for them? Or is it a case of, because they impose so much, there's no really point in then saying, guys, include us as part of your participation? Or maybe let me simplify it. What's the relationship like with Masipala and the councillor currently and VEJA?
Yeah, I think for years, VEJA has been working side to side with Emfuleni local municipality or Fezile Dabi district municipality, including Sidiben district municipality. One of the biggest setback we have is that at government, I think this has been projected that there is lack of political will. And at government, we find a lot of government officials who are deployed, especially on environmental management unit. It would mostly, especially at local municipality, it will be mostly people who didn't have enough capacity to do the work. You can imagine in Sidiben district alone, there's more than 32 atmospheric emission licenses. Meaning there's more than 32 facilities that are licensed or that have atmospheric emission license.
Sure.
And you go across the river at the Sasolburg Petrochemical Complex, there's about 52 of them. And you will only find one air quality officer at a local municipality, being Mfuleni. In the case of Sediben district, it is Mfuleni, it is Lesedi and Midval, with one district air quality officer. And then the same, you go to Fezile Dabi, Metsimaholo, there's one air quality officer and there's one air quality officer at the district.
Sure.
So these people, they wouldn't have enough capacity to administer all the atmospheric emission licenses in the region. But also, a lot of corporations have tend to absorb a lot of environmental management, environmental science, environmental management scholars, because a lot of them are working in the corporate sector.
Okay.
So we would lack a lot of professionals in that space, especially from government. Yeah. Perhaps that would be the observation, if I may say.
And I think even when you look at the community scope, it seems like communities are very aware and conscious of their rights as it comes to environmental justice and climate justice. There's an awareness, there's an understanding, even from a policy standpoint. But from an activist standpoint, who is doing the work, what do you think is still missing for that turn to take place? I mean, you talk about the officials that are in those portfolios, right? Measuring air quality and waste. But what do you think is still that missing link in as far as making sure that one, participation takes place, but also that there's active engagement in having policy discussions and implementation?
I think the biggest setback is corruption. There could be a lot of elements that are creating this because, honestly speaking, a lot of people are aware of the environmental management laws, even the pollution that is coming to them. As much as other people are not even aware that respiratory illnesses are caused by air quality, because we picked this up during the interviews which we're doing with communities living close to Letaba Power Station. A lot of people in Dennisville, there's a community called Vaal in Letabo. A lot of people were not aware that either asthmatic or skin rash, for instance, skin rash and eye infection they form part of air quality impact, and a lot of people were not aware. People sometimes wouldn't know where to take these cases, especially air quality incidents. But because there's a lot of corruption that is happening, other law enforcement officers tend to be bribed. It happens a lot in these communities. And because a lot of companies, in the observation again, a lot of companies are mostly concerned about profit, either than implementing their best available technologies that exist. Because we do have, if you go to it is so unfortunate because mostly in the global north countries, this is where you find companies deploying these technologies.
Yes. And even in that vein, there's an appetite for those technologies, right? For us to also be innovative, for us to also have that iterative process that says, let's do things differently, right? And we see it with renewable energy. We see it with some motorized systems for energy efficiency. And the appetite, do you think there's an appetite at a community level for the likes?
I think there is a big challenge. The challenge being if the new best available technologies are implemented in South Africa, it will be humans versus machines.
Okay.
Because we are now living in the digital space whereby machines have taken over tasks that were also meant for humans. A lot of machines today, I will go back to this example again of the big mines that are supposed to come in Vaal. With the capacity of such a huge coal mining, only 200 permanent jobs will be created to those three open casts. That is a huge coal mining capacity, but you find less human resource on site. And then the biggest question now is that there are huge TLBs. I may not have the proper ways to call it, but the huge trucks and TLBs that will be used. It will be a first-time import to South Africa, meaning there's nobody licensed to drive that in South Africa. So who's going to work in that mine? So the biggest challenge is that the new best available technology tends to put human resource down because a lot of technology today is also based on less human interference because other decarbonization models, they are yet going to turn down jobs. For instance, it is projected that the steel transition is going to lay jobs up to more than 60%.
Sure.
But it is also going to create jobs at about 50% or so. So there is that huge challenge that the new technologies are going to put. I think this is one of the biggest argument that COSATU has, because doing away with fossil fuels, to them it sounds like a big threat. I still have that observation because we are still trying so hard to work hand in hand with the organized labor in terms of decarbonization issues.
And reskilling, right? To say, how then do we reskill for the future in a way that's efficient and makes sense for workers that are also in and part of that transition?
Absolutely. So in September last year, VEJA launched a policy brief against ArcelorMittal decarbonization roadmap. This was after ArcelorMittal South Africa announced that they announced in 2019 about the roadmap, and it was published on ArcelorMittal's website in 2023. With the announcement being made 6 years down the line, at that time 2023, it was three years down the line. It was not in the public domain. It was especially on the shop steward at workers level. A lot of workers didn't know about it. So we took it upon us that we will summarize. It's a 40-page document. We summarized it to about 8 pages.
Sure.
We made a policy brief from the civil society perspective, and it was taken to the community for dialogues. And during the dialogues, we had raised a lot of issues like the hopes and the fears, of which a lot of hopes never happened because the hopes was reskilling, repurposing of jobs, steel jobs, and rehabilitation of the historical impact.
Yes.
All of those things didn't happen 6 years down the line. But the fears that we have is a lot of pollution, a lot of job losses, which happened, by the way. At Vanderbijl Park Works, ArcelorMittal, when they installed the solar plant for their wastewater treatment plant, that solar plant took about 40 jobs, permanent jobs.
Sure.
Got laid down because the previous electrician powerhouse for that plant, it was maintained by people who were working there. So the solar plant took away 40 jobs. So those are the biggest challenges we have. Yes.
And the realities that communities are now having to sit with, right, on what it looks like, one, for a just transition, but also for a skills base that is feeding the community from an employment standpoint. But I think as we wrap, I'd like to get a bit personal.
Yes.
And for you to share why this work is important to you as Mduduzi. You know, why does it fuel your passion? Why does the activism around environmental justice impact your life, and why it's your call for purpose?
From my perspective, honestly speaking, I think coming from Vaal, and I grew up there for the past 42 years. I grew up there, and a lot of people are living with respiratory illness. And if nobody is standing up against such a corporate impunity, nobody else will.
Yeah.
So I took it upon my commitment that there's nothing else. There's nobody who's going to fight for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you so much for joining us on Just to Say, for being vulnerable enough to also mention the difficulties that you face with some corporate South Africa actors, and also what the role of VEJA showcases in the Vaal Triangle. I think you've really enamored us to also take up our challenges, to say, let's not sit in our, air-conditioned offices, but also be active participants in environmental justice. So, Galabo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Just a Say, the Climate Justice Sessions. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to like, subscribe, and share the episode. Also, give us your feedback. Tell us who you'd like to have on the show. Share your comments and also any insights that you think could be value for us. We really appreciate it, and see you in the next episode.